Hello, world. Welcome to Comic Book News. I'm your old pal, Dan Shaheen. Oh, man, today am I ever excited. I'm so excited about my guest today because, oh, man, today's guest, he ran for the Democratic nomination for president. He spread the gospel of universal basic income. Oh, wait. No, I'm sorry. Wait a minute. I'm on the wrong page. I'm on the wrong Y page in my book. Today we got Gene Yang, even more exciting because, frankly, universal basic income might be a pipe dream in the long run, but Gene Yang is not. Gene Yang's the real deal. Gene Yang's a cartoonist. He's doing it at the highest level. He clawed his way up. He worked super hard. He started at the bottom with grants and work in the indie scene, and now he's the darling of the comic scene. Not just the indie scene and DC Comics. He's moving up the ranks, and I predict nothing but great things for Gene Yang. If you watch this show, you know that I love Dragon Hoops. Like, that is a great book. It's not a good book. It's a great book. It's a great graphic novel. It's not just a great it's a great book. But as far as graphic novels go, this year, it's one of the best that I've read. Now, what? Not the best. Okay, well, maybe it is. I'm going to reveal that soon in my Best of the Year show. But when you consider that this year had new works by Joe Sacco, Ed Brubaker, who else? So many other like really great books came out this year that I read and loved. That for him to even crack the ranks of that is, I don't know, it's impressive to me. But beyond that, this book is in like my ranks of one of the best graphic novels maybe that I've ever read, for a lot of different reasons. This is one that works for the normies, for regular people that they could read this book. And that's really hard to pull off. So many cartoonists are so far up the cartooning butthole that they don't realize that comics can be inaccessible to like an average person who just picks one up. They literally do not know how to read a comics page and where the balloon should go. And so you have to take a lot of care to structure your pages so that they flow. And honestly, I've yet to see a much better job than I saw in this book. Okay. It's fantastic. Not to mention the meta commentary on cartooning, on himself, on racism, on racial interaction without being ham-fisted. How about sexual abuse scandals? How about really difficult subject matter handled in a way that kept me like in suspense about whether he's even going to talk about it? I can't give away too much, but we'll bring in Gene and we're going to talk about this stuff. Okay, but first, a little bit of show business. Thank you for watching. If you have not already, please consider hitting that subscribe button. You know, if you like this video, hey, click that thumbs up. If you don't, you can click the thumbs down. That will not offend me, but I would appreciate it if you would put some comments about what you maybe didn't like. If you saw our last show, the $1 Million Mailbox, man, we had some incredible comics that we showed on the $1 Million Comics Cam. And if you want to see your books on the $1 Million Comics Cam, on the $1 Million Mailbox, where do you send them to? You send them right here. You send them to Comic Book News, P.O. Box 1163, Arcata, California, 95518. Not Arcadia, not Arcata. It's Arcata. All right? Send them in. We'll take a look at them. And I'll give you my unvarnished opinion. Now, some people like varnish on their opinions. I'm sorry. Last time, there was some controversy about my review of a certain book. And that's okay. Keep the comments coming. I can handle it. I'm a big boy. I really like it when they're respectful. When they're not, you just disappear from the channel. So keep it respectful, and you can criticize me. We'll put it on the channel. Okay. Let's talk to Gene Yang. Let's talk about Dragon Hoops. I want to bring him in here. We already had a heck of an interesting conversation backstage, so I can't wait to bring this guy in. We share a sort of like regional town area. Like I grew up in the Bay Area. He I think grew up there, but certainly worked there. We traded in the same like comics and librarian circles. Like Dan Vado factors into Gene Yang's life and into my life, and libraries and comic books and teaching librarians and teachers to sell comic books. That's like that was my thing. And Gene does a better job at it and is still doing it. And is doing even better by producing works that are not just like okay for the libraries, but are like slam dunk. This is going to move copies, right? Circulation. There's a lot of people out there that think libraries like have this social agenda and they're buying books that like reflect their values and only putting those on the shelf. If you think that, you're a dummy. Librarians move what circulates. That's what they order. They watch the numbers. And even more importantly, they watch their floors and they see the unspoken numbers of the kids that are just sitting there in their libraries all day reading comics. Okay. They understand what kids want to see. They understand what makes a good comic. It's not always superheroes. In fact, we're learning it's usually not with today's kids. Sometimes it is, though. And what I love about Gene, here's what I love the most, folks. He's got his feet firmly in both worlds. This guy loves comic books. He loves Superman. He writes Superman. He's not poo-pooing superheroes or Superman. Far from it. He wants to write the most fun, greatest comics for those people, but also for people maybe who have zero interest in superheroes. People who want to, who want to learn a little something about life. All right. Okay. Have I talked him up enough? Are we ready? Gene, are you ready? Let's bring in Gene Yang right now. Gene Yang. Hey.
Hey, how's it going, Dan? Thanks for having me.
Dude, thank you for being you, let alone being here.
I'm excited to be here. This is a great way to end a pretty terrible year.
Oh, man, you don't even know. We didn't talk about much. This was like a transformative year. And I don't believe in astrology. But, dude, we had an unexpected comet this year. And we got like Jupiter and ascendants for the first time in 800 years or whatever. Like, there's something to that. They're just, we call it coincidental, but it's a nutty year.
Yeah, it was rough. For everybody. But I mean, even in comics, right? It was a pretty rough year.
Especially, man, especially if you run a comic book store. But amongst the darkness, amongst the destruction, amongst the ruin, there were gems of light, right? I'm mixing my metaphors, but there was lightness in that. There was light in that darkness, and one of them was the publication of Gene Yang just like ascending as a comics author.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you saying that. Yeah. So Dragon Hoops, the book that came out in March. This one right here. This was actually supposed to come out 2 years ago, but I missed 3 deadlines. And that's why it came out this year. And it came out right at the beginning of quarantine. I think, one of the things I'll remember for this year was being in early March. For a second, my publisher had planned this 2-week long book tour for me. Awesome book tour. Probably the most elaborate of my career. They had me scheduled to go to different book festivals and comic book conventions and stuff. And I was supposed to get on an airplane on Tuesday, and that Sunday, I think, we canceled. And it was like, at the time, it felt like such a crazy decision to do that. But then 2 weeks later, like everything canceled. Like NBA canceled their whole season. It just didn't. It seemed like a no-brainer at that point.
Yeah, that's an unexpected wrinkle. I'm just thinking, like, if it was me, I would be so actually secretly happy because I'm like, I hate to travel, so I'd be like, oh, I get my book launch, but I'm not allowed to leave my house. So,
I hate airplanes. I'm like that. I'm like you. I hate airplanes, but I do like. You don't like conventions though? I like conventions, and I like, hanging out with other comic book people. That's not a thing.
The filthy, unwashed throngs of humanity. No, I love them, but occasionally, dude, sporadically. Like, it's so difficult to get to them. Where I'm at, I live way up north, and we actually had a little comic book convention that started here, the Ohana Con in the little Indian casino up here. And it was just a breath of fresh air to go into because it's so, like, up here, you don't have a ton of collectors or anything. So it had to be like family fun focused.
Oh, that sounds great.
And it was fantastic. Dude, if they come up again, I hope you would think about coming up here to something like that. Cause it was really a lot of fun to kids that don't get to see that kind of stuff much.
Yeah. That sounds great.
Okay. So tell me, well, wait a minute. Let's back it up. The secret origin of Gene Yang.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I have that much of a secret origin. I mean, I was born and raised in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
Okay. I was born and raised in the Bay Area like you, right? And I wonder if we went to the same comic book shops as a kid. What comic book shop did you go to?
Oh, man. I had one that I grew up in. I started working at when I was 11, and I bought when I was an adult. So, like, I had one shop. Okay. It was called Mike's Coliseum in San Jose, and now it's called Hijinks Comics. It's still there. Okay. Oldest comic shop in San Jose.
Yeah, but I did an event before.
Yes. Okay. World of Fantasy. I used to go to what? Dan Vado's shop when he had a shop. R&K Comics, Red Plant Comics, Comics Pendragon, one of my favorites. What about you?
Red Planet. The Red Planet was one of my childhood shops. Yeah, and then Little Shop of Heroes. Did you ever hear of that one?
Oh yes.
Yeah. Which I think became
Little Shop of Heroes, right? Story. No, great story. They were right around the corner from Heroes in Campbell, California, right? And then my comic book collection was stolen and sold to Little Shop of Heroes.
Oh, really? Crazy.
Yeah. By my brother. And the only way I found out is because he also happened to steal a credit card and charge 25 cents on it to test their credit card machine. And I managed to track it down, and I got back all of my graphic novels, but none of my comics. And I was working in a comic book shop from the age of 11 in 1986 till college when these things got stolen. So I had a pretty decent collection.
Yeah. Oh, terrible. Terrible. That's a heartbreaking story. Did he ever apologize?
Well, he's dead now. So no, he did apologize. Okay. He did apologize, dude. He had a lot of troubles in his life and he got his act together. And honestly, what it helped me do, I became a comic book dealer after that, and you don't get high on your own supply, so I ended up selling everything anyway.
Okay.
Then I sold the shop, and now I'm back in the hoarding mode of comics. Okay, but so in 95, Gene, you started getting the bug, from what I'm reading.
Yeah.
Well, I formed Humble Comics, right?
Yeah, I'd made comics as a kid. I started collecting when I was in 5th grade, and so I started making comics immediately after that. And I think that's one of the things that I loved about comic books is that even in the 80s, a kid could make a comic. So back in the 80s, like nowadays, if a kid wants to make a movie, they can on their laptop. But back in the 80s, if you wanted to make like a movie or I don't know, cut a music album or anything else, it was pretty much inaccessible. But for comics were always there. So I started making comics as a kid. And then after I graduated from college in 95. And after that, I was like, I need to self-publish a comic book or I'm going to die unhappy. So I started working on that. And I think I self-published maybe the year after, or maybe 2 years after, I self-published my first comic.
It says here 1997.
Yeah. Okay. So it was 2 years
Gordon
later.
Gordon Yamamoto.
That's right.
And the Geeks.
Yeah, that's right. That was
later collected. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. Later collected by Dan Vado, who we just talked about. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to bring up Dan Vado for a second. Slave labor graphics. Dan is one of those guys who I haven't had on the show yet, which is amazing because I mean I've interviewed him multiple times in other, like when I had a radio show, a college radio show and stuff like that. Because that guy, I don't know, it's really difficult to explain his importance or to
he's a big deal. Yeah.
Dan Vado. Talk about him just for a second, man. Give him some love.
I feel like I don't know, 80s, 90s, early 2000s comics are defined by him, right? Are defined by slave labor, like the whole Johnny the Homicidal Maniac thing. So many cartoonists working today, we got our start with slave labor and Dan. That's true of Faith Erin Hicks and Andy Watson. There's just a ton. There's a ton of us. Mike Allred,
Evan Dorkin.
Yeah, everybody, dude. There's so many people, and I think slave labor in a lot of ways was this like, I don't know. It was almost like an incubator, right? It was like a startup incubator for cartoonists. It was great. And he had such he still has such a love for comics and for the community.
Dan's the man.
Dan's the best. Started Ape. Ape was like the very first show that I tabled at. It's where I met a lot of my lifelong cartoonist friends, and that was all out of Dan's brain.
So I'm going to say, I don't know anybody else who's ticked all these boxes. Maybe there's maybe a couple guys in the industry who's ticked the boxes of retailer, publisher, creator, writer for DC Comics.
That's right. He wrote Justice League comics, right?
Yes, Justice League Extreme, a high
Extreme.
moment.
That's right.
In Justice League, which he hated doing and gets grief for to this day. But dude, he did the Griffin. He took a superhero and set it in San Jose and published it and showed what he could do. And then when things slowed down in the publishing world for him, he has pivoted and done so many things. He's like the heart of the live music scene now in San Jose. I don't know if you know what Dan's up to these days, but
yeah, I mean, last I heard he had gotten into events, right? So that must be what it is. Yeah,
but he's still a publisher. He wanted me to make sure that I don't say he's an ex-publisher. He's still publishing. Yeah. And when the right project comes up, he's a tastemaker and a talent finder extraordinaire.
Yeah.
We love Dan.
He's great. He's great.
Okay. So after Humboldt Comics, according to my research here, you worked on Avatar, the last, like an adaptation of Avatar, which is amazing because that property, I was never really into it until very recently. My wife has started watching it with my daughter, and it's such a thing like it's such a daddy type thing that I'm like sucked into it. It's so great. I had never really given it a chance. Tell me about that, the Avatar phenomenon. Because I'm going to say this, Avatar, The Last Airbender is what Avatar means in the public consciousness, not James Cameron's.
Yeah, I agree. Especially now, especially after it got on Netflix again, right? Like this summer, there's like this huge resurgence of Avatar fandom. Yeah, it's kind of crazy now. Like I hear from the children of my friends who were not even alive when Avatar was originally airing, and there are these huge Avatar fans now. It's like the Netflix effect times 1,000. But Avatar, I first learned about it actually from a good friend of mine named Kirk Kim, who was a big Avatar fan. So he watched it as it was airing, and then he loaned me the first season on DVD. And he's like, Gene, you got to watch this. This is the best animated series ever. And I was like, it might be. It might be. Yeah, I think it is. But I was not a fan of Nickelodeon at the time. I thought all of their stuff was kind of fun and goofy and not really deep. But Avatar is, I mean, it's fun, and there are parts of it that are goofy, but it is so deep. Like the writing is so deep. You know, it's
Oh,
like why
that's the
7?
brilliance of it.
Yeah, exactly. Like they're able to deal with like things like, I don't know, death and war and family trauma in ways that are accessible to kids, but that don't talk down to them, right?
Yes. And at the same time, there's moments of comedy. It's not just all gravity, like action and fighting. There's like moments of levity and character development and everything else.
Yeah, the balance is just like I don't know. I still watch those episodes and I'm like, how did they balance all that stuff in 22-minute segments? It's shocking. So when Dark Horse signed on to do when they got the license to do the continuation of Avatar: The Last Airbender, one of the editors called me up to ask me if I'd be willing to write, and I jumped at the chance because I'm such a fan of that series, largely because of Derek, you know. Because Derek.
Let's go back to Derek because we talked about him a little backstage, and like I don't know if I can repeat my effusive praise for Derek Kirk Kim enough, because that guy, I just want more comics from him. Same difference. His book is one of the best autobiographical style graphic novels ever done, in my opinion.
It is. Yeah. He has won all 3 major comic book industry awards. He won an Eisner, he won a Harvey, and he won an Ignatz. He was in comics for a while. He moved into animation, so he worked on a couple of seasons of Adventure Time. Then he did a bunch of work for Disney on a show called Amphibia. He was like a director there. And now he's starting to inch back into comics. So his most recent project, which everybody should check out, is called Last Mermaid, and he's running it on Instagram. So it's sort of a combo, right? So some of the pieces from this world look like animatics from and they're beautiful. You got to check it out. They're beautiful animatics from like a animation, and then some of it is like comics. But he has like character designs on there, and also it's amazing.
Okay, I gotta check that out for sure. And I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm going to. Okay, I want to talk to Derek. I want to bring him in here and talk when he's ready to promote anything.
All right. I'll tell him.
Cool, man.
I'm sure he'd love to.
Tell him. Oh, wait. So before we move on, I want to talk about another project. We got 2 more before we get to our main deal here. All right. So I want to talk about American Born Chinese, which I reread again just the other day, and I got a copy here. Maybe we'll look at it. Dude, that book is also amazing, Gene. Like I think Dragon Hoops is better. I think you improved as a cartoonist and a writer and everything else since then. But man, the ability to look at race relations in the way that you did, and the self-criticalness, somebody who comes from an outside culture. Like I'm the son of immigrants, right? Like I identified a lot with the stuff that you talked about in both of those books. But tell me how this book came about. Like how did ABC happen?
Well, thank you. First of all, thanks. I mean, it's actually all kind of connected. Like I met Derek. I met Derek at an alternative press expo, which was started by Dan. We met at an after party. Yeah. And after that, I kind of fell in with all of these cartoonists that we were all doing like mini comics, you know, and we were selling them at shops all over the Bay Area. We would meet once a week at somebody's house, usually Jason Shiga's house, who's another one of our cartoonist friends. And like Jesse Ham was there. There's just a bunch of us that were all in the Bay Area at the time. I know Jason Thompson. So American Born Chinese began as one of these mini comics that I would work on in the context of all of these Bay Area cartoonists. So I remember we would we would get together once a week and we would show each other our stuff. So I would show them American Born Chinese. And then once I finished a chapter, I would Xerox it and I would try to go sell it. I'd go sell it. I sold it through, there are a couple of stores in the Bay Area that would carry mini comics on consignment, like Comic Relief in Berkeley was one of them, right? And I would sell them at 8. I would sell them at 8. So once a year, I would get a table at Dan's show, and I'd sell these handmade comics. So eventually, Derek meets this guy named Mark Siegel, who is the head publisher or head editor at a publisher called First Second Books. This was like 2005, 2006. And First Second was just getting started. So he makes that connection. I submit stuff. Actually, Derek actually did it. Derek submitted. I had like out of the 9 chapters of American Born Chinese, I had 8 of them done, and Derek sent them to Mark, and then Mark and I had a conversation over the phone, and he decided to sign me up. So all of it, it's sort of like, I mean, it kind of all began at Alternative Press Expo. So I think in a lot of ways, I'm a product of the Bay Area cartooning community, you know?
Right. I no doubt, right? And who's more important in that than Dan Vado and Rory Root?
Rory Root.
Who could you put? We did a whole Rory Root tribute show recently where we just, because Rory was a really good friend of mine and a mentor, and we miss him, and the comics is poor. The industry is poor without him.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, Rory, I still, you know, they at his wake, they gave these little dice, these little black dice, you know, and in the one spot, it just says Rory Root. And I have those dice by my drawing table to this day.
Man, I wish I was there. I wish I still had that. I don't know where those are. We passed in that, probably in that thing, but there were hundreds of people there, right?
There were hundreds of people there. Yeah, there were hundreds of people there. Yeah, people were bringing flowers into the shop. I mean, it was. I remember hearing about his death and just being completely shocked because he was just always there. He was always there, right? Like we would have these Bay Area cartoonist meetings. He was the one that was hosting. It would be hosted at an Indian restaurant right next to Comic Relief. He was always there at every show, at every WonderCon, at every Comic-Con. He was just always there. And then suddenly he wasn't. It was a shock to the system.
I think part of it has to do with how iconic he was, the hat, the shirt, the things. And it's like suddenly, like that's such an image that you saw at every single convention ever.
Yeah.
And then suddenly it's gone, and you don't realize what a gaping hole losing Comic Relief is to the world, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean, so many of us got our start on the mini comic shelf at Comic Relief, right? Like, I mean, that was true of, I think Raina Telgemeier had work there. I mean, it's just so many people.
No doubt. And, okay, so, all right, Laura gave you a leg up, but Gene, you have to hustle. You got to work, and you did that. Now, here's a project that I'm very interested in learning about. I have not read and has a particular appeal to me. The Secret Coders.
Well, thank you. Okay, awesome. Yeah, I mean, that's what I studied in college. I actually was a computer science major. And then I worked as a coder for a couple of years. So while I was working on self-publishing comics, in the beginning, I was a software developer. And then I became a computer science teacher at a school in Oakland.
Amazing.
So I was there for 17 years. So for, up until 5 years ago, I was like always living this double life where coding was a part of my life, usually in the classroom, and then comics were a part of my life, usually like after school, right? So Secret Coders is kind of like me trying to combine the two together. I actually think one of the things that's really missing in American comics is educational comics.
Yes.
I mean, that's just starting now, right? Like First Second has a series of science comics and a series of history comics. Nathan Hale does a great series of historical comics. So we're just starting to build that up.
But wait a minute. I will point out a pioneer in comics pedagogy.
Oh, Larry
guest.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. He was ahead of his time.
He's the granddaddy, for sure.
Yeah, he is. But he was alone on that shelf, right? Like there was nobody else.
This is what I'm saying, though. But can you imagine the uphill climb he had, like, to get there? But the numbers speak for themselves, where Cartoon History of Calculus or whatever, whichever one is his most popular, is just a monster. Like more people, Statistics is his number one, and it's my favorite.
Oh, okay.
I own original art. There is no better statistics textbook than Larry Gonnick's.
I haven't read that one. Oh, I gotta go get that one. Yeah, he is. But so my wife is Korean American, and she has relatives in Korea. So One summer we went to visit her relatives, and we went to a Korean bookstore, and they have. I mean, it's not just a shelf; it is a section of educational comics. So why don't we have that? Why isn't that a thing in America? I just feel like we're so behind.
Well, not to mention though business comics and sports comics and everything else. And I have a sneaking suspicion you might have taken a peek at Slam Dunk or a few of those sports manga to get some inspiration.
Yeah,
for Dragon Hoops.
Yeah, Slam Dunk specifically. Yeah, and I think there's also this book called Bull on Parade about Michael Jordan that I think is a European comic. So both, right? Both the Asian and the European markets, at least until very recently, were way more diverse than us. You could find you can find French comics for every demographic about practically anything that you wanted. Same with Japanese comics, and it's weird that in America, up until very recently, we haven't been like that.
Well, that gap is an opportunity for a smart fellow like Gene Yang, and you went in to fill it. So, like I said, I haven't looked at Secret Coders, but I promised to. I'm super interested in it. I never took a computer science class in my life, but I've been coding. I've been writing code for 20 years, and but I feel this gap. I feel this insecurity. So I always look for cool text like that can help me fill in some of the gaps in a fun way with lots of pictures. I'm gonna read it.
Awesome. Well, I mean, I learned how to code in 5th grade at a summer camp kind of thing. Yeah. So that's sort of what I want to introduce those concepts, like the basic coding concepts to 5th graders, to kids around that age. And that's what that is.
Al, I'm going to check that out. What's your language of choice?
I decided, I thought about it for a really long time. And ultimately, I decided to use the language that I learned when I was in 5th grade, which is this language called Logo. I don't know if you've ever played with Logo.
Oh, yeah, of course. The turtle.
With like a little turtle. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Because I wanted a language that felt kind of like a lost magic language, Like, how like in Harry Potter, like they say these words from an old language and then all this stuff happens. I kind of wanted it to be like that. Like these coding kids, they type in words from this lost language. And then all the magic stuff happens.
We got to talk, Gene. I got ideas for you. We got to talk.
Awesome. What language do you use in your job?
What do you got, baby?
Everything? Like Python, everything?
Whatever you need. I'll write Python, Perl, JavaScript, Apex, Java, whatever the job calls for. I'm not an expert. I'm not an expert in any of those, but maybe one. But
But that's all you need, right? I mean, that's the beauty of coding. If you get to know one language really well, you can transition to any language relatively easily.
Well, what I'm trying to develop, not to go too far afield here, but on my other channel, I have a tech channel. And I do like GitHub tips and Git tips and developer tips and stuff. And like, I really want to do one for just like what the average person who does not want to be a developer, what they could get out of learning to code. Like, what is the what's a practical, fun things you could do with code? Because there's a lot of them.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, even for cartoonists, right? Like in Photoshop, you have actions. And that's essentially like really simple code. So it's all over.
And you can save a lot of time if you know how to write that stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Have we bored enough of the audience yet? Wait a minute. I see it. I sense in the comments people are like, what compiler do you prefer, Gene? How All right. Sorry, guys. All right. Let's get this back on track and let's talk about, let's talk about Dragon Hoops. But wait, I'm not ready. Wait a minute. I have to, because sports, right? So we got.
Oh man, look at that.
Wait a second. And just to prove my bona fides as a sports fan.
Awesome.
I'm the real dude. I'm the real deal. I'm the real deal.
That's right. You are the real deal.
I hate sports, dude. I hate them. I like playing them. I don't like watching them. Okay. I'm not a team player, so I didn't play on teams much. I did the individual things. But neither did you.
That's hilarious. That is hilarious. That's the best. You just wear it. That's like any game you could wear that too, right?
Well, that's right. Well, this lets me bond with the people, even though like I don't care at all. Actually, what I say is I'm a Huey Lewis fan.
Okay. That makes sense. I totally forgot. I forgot he had that album.
First and best.
Yeah.
But so I digress. Gene, let's talk about sports though. You weren't a sports fan either, man. You're a computer
I
science.
was not.
You're the nerd. You're the
Yeah.
nerd teacher, dude. The nerd.
I didn't even like playing. You were one step ahead of me. I didn't even like playing sports. So,
dude, like calculus teachers beat up computer science teachers. That's what.
Oh yeah. Computer science teachers we are at the bottom of the nerd teacher hierarchy for sure. Yeah, I mean, we used to make this joke in the faculty lunchroom. You know, there was a history teacher who was also the rugby coach, and whenever I was standing in line to get food, he would always shove his way in front of me, kind of as a joke, but kind of not. You know, it was just we're at the bottom for sure.
Not jokes are only funny because they're true, right? It's that he's like
a little bit
subtle dominance. Subtle.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, but I was at the school for 17 years. I was the computer science teacher there. I also did a little bit of art, a little bit of math, but mostly computer science. And Bishop O'Dowd High School, it's in Oakland. It's like a sports powerhouse. So we have awesome football and volleyball and basketball teams. I was not involved in any of that. And then my last year there, during the 2014-2015 school year, I got to know the coach of the basketball team. And I just found this crazy story in that basketball program that I had to put on paper. And that's what Dragon Hoops is.
And what a story. I mean, like, it is a saga, right?
Yeah.
It's an intergenerational saga in the end.
It is. With just the coach. His name is Lou Ritchie, and he's one of the most interesting people I know. Like, I was only able to fit like a fraction of who he was in that book, but he's just he's lived a really intense life.
Well, sure. Gene, wait a minute. I know we could talk about this book, and we will. We should. We are. But, you know, we have another way of looking at these things, right? Because I got a copy of your book here on the bookshelf. Let me I got a copy here. And we can take a look, but I don't want to just hold it up to the screen, Gene. You know what I want to do? You know what I'm thinking, Gene?
What's that?
Baby, I'm thinking $1 Million Comics Cam. So let's take a trip, if you will.
All right, let's do it.
Inside the $1 Million Comics Cam. Let's do this thing. Wow. $1 Million Comics Cam. Are you kidding me?
Look at that.
This is high tech, Gene.
Yeah, that's fancy, man.
But I don't want to get in the way, so I need to shrink it down. Oh man, I think my jersey was throwing off the color balance. Now we're a little bit better. Okay, let's look at some books, man. I got a couple of books. I got American Born Chinese, which we talked about.
Awesome.
I reread it recently. Now, this format, tell me about this format. Was this like a web comic originally? Is that what
it was? It was both a web comic and a mini comic. So I published it originally as these black and white square mini comics. You know, I'd get them copied at Copy Central in Berkeley, and then sell them at Comic Relief, like we talked about. So I wasn't expecting it to be color. Yeah. You know, when I was working on it.
Color looks good though. Colors by, I believe, is
Lark. Yeah, Lark Pien. Yeah, she's great. She's another. I mean, she lives in Portland now, but she used to live in the Bay Area. She was another person who came up in the Bay Area comic scene.
Couple things I love about this book. One is the Monkey King, right? Like, when this book came out, honestly, I'll say I was a little disappointed because I was like, I always thought that would be the greatest story. Like, you take the Monkey King. It's just such a great, the original stories, and at least the translations that I read in school are so fun and fantastic. He's such a great character.
Yeah.
Which I find is rare kind of in mythology that way, where he's like, I don't know, maybe it's not that rare, but like his ego is such a part of his character, and him overcoming that is really great.
Yeah. I agree. I think he's he's a classic for a reason, right? And there are amazing adaptations of his story in Asia, like in both China and Japan. There are all these amazing Monkey King manga, right? But the vast majority of it hasn't been translated into English.
To be honest, Gene, since you're writing for DC Comics, I think you should bring that character into the DC Comics world, right? Like, if you can have gods and goddesses in there, why couldn't the monkey just be a monkey?
I agree. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, especially like in a world where there's Wonder Woman, it would totally make sense for that.
That's what I'm saying. Actually, Marvel Comics, I thought it would make a lot of sense too with Thor.
Yeah, with Thor. Yeah.
Okay, but then let's talk about China. Let's just put it out there, the stereotypes, Gene. Like, you didn't stray away from them. You didn't try to, like, I don't know. Them
so that character is definitely Cousin Chinky. He's the Chinese stereotype on those pages. He's definitely the most controversial part of the book. And in a lot of ways, I wanted to take these things that had just kind of been haunting me since I was a kid and put them on paper, almost as like an exorcism. So you said you're the son of immigrants.
Yeah.
Can I ask from where? Like where your parents are from?
Sure. Yeah. No, I'm Palestinian.
Okay.
So I don't know. For me, it was terrorist jokes and whatever. You know.
Yeah, but I think.
Yeah, you ever heard of Zayt and Zatar? You know what Zatar is? It's a spice. Now it's a fancy thing. Like, there's a fancy restaurants named Zatar.
Okay.
But it's a spice that Arabs like to dip bread in olive oil called Zayt, and then you dip it in the spice called Zatar, and then you eat it. Okay. And so here's Danny roller skating to school in first grade with a Zayt and Zatar sandwich, which just looks like dirt. It just looked like a dirt sandwich, and that's what it was called from then on out.
Dirt sandwich. I had a dirt sandwich too. I had something like that too. Yeah, it was like this pork, like shredded pork that's dried, and it was like dirt. Yeah. And all the friends who did not have immigrant parents would call it the dirt sandwich.
Well, mine like literally has twigs and seeds and stuff. It was a fair critique, I guess I'm going to say. I take try a bite of this dirt, and they're sold on it after that.
Okay,
so.
Awesome.
Anyway, those types of things, and like seeing yourself as an other, seeing yourself as, and when you're born and raised in this country like I was, but you come from parents who were not necessarily, you're just that you can't relate to them on the same level. You can't relate to your peers on that level. And even then your relatives, like your cousins come to visit or whatever from that country, and you can't identify with them.
That's exactly right. Yeah. You're like caught in between worlds, you know? And I think that's like, in a lot of ways, I think that's what spoke to me about superhero comics, is that a lot of superheroes, they just have to navigate in between these two worlds. Right. And that just seems it made sense to me. For sure.
I'll say it again, that I love that you can embrace both sides and not just go superheroes are for dummies. I love that, Gene.
Well, I have to admit, I did go through a period of time when I was a little snobby about superheroes. But
you can't say that now, Gene. You cannot say that now.
I love superheroes again. I just think, I don't know, I feel like when you're like a teenager, you kind of rebel against all the stuff that you really loved as a kid. And then when you become an adult, you embrace it again.
Of course. Oh, you know what? I'm sorry, Gene. I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to hog. I really forgot. I'm sorry about that.
Oh,
we need your face, Gene. Too pretty to hide that mug. Come on. So, speaking of pretty, now I had a choice of covers, and I'm going to say that I chose. How could you not? When you have a choice of covers, and one is Kyle Baker. How do you not choose a Kyle Baker?
Yeah, Kyle Baker. He's one of the best, man. As soon as I read, do you remember his Dick Tracy comics from was it 80s? They were so good. They're so good. I remember looking at those.
It was the movie. It was a movie adaptation. It was the Warren Beatty movie.
That's right.
Brilliant comics, because Baker knows what Dick Tracy was really about.
Yeah, that's right. It was better than the movie. His comic was better than the movie.
Way better. Dude, let's call him out. Let's call it like it is, Gene. Come on, buddy. Just like what? What's another example of that? I don't know. Maybe the Dune comic. I like the movie too. Um, but so Superman Smash the Clan. Let's just talk about it briefly because frankly, Superman gets a lot of play anyway. DC Comics is on my shit list this year as a publisher, but I will say they publish some of the best creators. They publish some of the they still publish interesting comics, especially for superhero stuff. Like if you want really high quality, well written superhero stuff, I'm leaning on the DC side away from Marvel. Tell me about this book.
Yeah, I mean, so I get it. Like from there have been some rough spots in the DC retailer relationship this year for sure. But from the creative standpoint, like from my standpoint as a creator, I feel like they have been. I mean, specifically like Marie Javins, who was the editor of the book, was just supportive from day one. You know, they were starting up this young adult and middle grade line, and I had a conversation with her over breakfast at a convention. I pitched her this book, and she was supportive from day one. And she's like, you know, that was the first time I actually worked with her. She has a reputation for being this amazing, legendary editor, and all of that is true. I have to say, all of that is true. So pretty early on, we talked about who we wanted to do the art. And I brought up Gurihiru. She was completely on board, and I think they were just phenomenal. Like early on, we were like, we wanted to look like those Max Fleischer cartoons, those Superman cartoons, right? With a little bit of manga mixed in, and I feel like they just nailed it.
Well, I'm gonna say of the all ages stuff and DC's or young adult stuff, DC's been putting a lot of it out lately. Different formats than this. Like this is different form, but this is the best looking one by far.
Oh well, I mean, if it is, it's totally because of Gurihiru. It's.
I'm not giving you credit. I'm not giving you any credit for that. Don't worry.
they're like. I feel like they're among the best, right? They're like.
Now tell me. Wait a minute. When you say they. Tell me what they are. I don't really even know who that is.
So Gurihiru are two women. They are they live in Japan, and so they call them. I mean, they're presented as an art studio, but it's really just these two amazing women who one of them does the pencils, the other one does the inks and the colors, and their level of art, their storytelling. And also, I have to say, they're like the number of comics that they're able to produce on an annual basis is just absolutely astounding.
Dude, it's all there. I mean, it's wonderful storytelling, and talk about the historical significance. Where did this story come from, and what it means, and then we'll move on. I promise we'll move on.
Sure. So Superman Smashes the Klan is an adaptation of one of the most famous stories from the Superman mythos. So back in the 1940s, he had the most popular radio show in America. Millions of listeners would tune in every week. And in 1946, right after World War II, they did a 16-part storyline called The Clan of the Fiery Cross, where Superman actually takes on the DC Universe equivalent of the Ku Klux Klan. So this was a really controversial move at the time because the Klan, like there were communities in America at the time that did not see the Klan as a terrorist group. They saw the Klan as like this community morals group, you know, like the guardian of community morals. So they knew they were going to get pushback if they did it, but they chose to do it anyways. And I really think that was the moment that Superman really became like a paragon of a symbol of a certain kind, a certain view of America, like a multicultural America, an
inclusive, a more inclusive view.
Yeah. Like you know, I recently watched these old Superman serials from the 1940s. Like I think it was 1949, and they don't say truth, justice, and the American way in those serials. They say truth, tolerance, and justice. Right?
Oh,
so
really?
Yeah, I mean, it was just really It was a little bit shocking to me to hear, but I feel like that was the thing. It was like Superman, within those Superman stories, the American way and tolerance are ideas that are tied together. So, and that was exemplified in this old radio show. That story has never been adapted to comics, and that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to present that story in comics for the very first time. The reason why it's considered so important was because supposedly after that storyline aired, the real life Klan actually had this drop in membership because nobody wanted to join a group that was against Superman.
Pretty interesting how media biased like the Klan was. Like I read where the Flaming Cross actually was not a thing until Birth of a Nation.
That's right. That's right. It was not a thing. Yeah, it was art influencing life, right? Life imitating art.
Yeah, really weird kind of phenomenon. And speaking of what, another thing about the Superman radio show, not to digress, but I had heard and read that so many of the things we take for granted in the Superman mythos actually originated in the radio show.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Including
it's kind of crazy.
Kryptonite. Like those were radio things. Those did not come from the comic show. And that blew my mind when I heard that.
Yeah. Like Perry White, even Jimmy Olsen in some ways. So Jimmy Olsen, he showed up in the comics, but he was given a name in the radio show. And I think it's because like the radio show I think was airing 3 times a week, right? Whereas the comic was coming out once a month. So they needed way more material for the radio show, so it just developed a lot quicker.
Makes sense. It's kind of funny because then once the TV show came around, it was like the budget was like you can do so much less, I guess, on camera, like their budget. So like it took it down a notch. But that radio show, seminal and influential, and here it is showing up and influencing the comics yet again.
Yeah. I mean, that radio show, we're still living with that radio show, whether we know it or not.
Okay, let's talk, Gene. Let's talk Dragon Hoops, man. This is what we came for. Sports time, baby.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, this is my first nonfiction graphic novel. It covers a single season of a basketball team, the basketball team of Bishop O'Dowd High School, where I used to teach computer science. And it really begins with my friendship with this guy named Lou Ritchie. So Lou, his story is really chapter 1. He, like I said before, he's like one of the most interesting people I know. He is not just a teacher. That's him. He's not just a teacher at Bishop O'Dowd. He's not just the head coach of the varsity men's basketball team at Bishop O'Dowd. He's also an alum from Bishop O'Dowd. So he graduated from that school in 1989. When he was a junior in high school, he was on the varsity men's basketball team, and they made it all the way to the California State Championship, which back then was played in the Oakland Arena. The Oracle Arena is what we call it today. But so this was a televised game in the biggest arena that 17-year-old Lou Ritchie had ever played in. And he has so his team, the Bishop O'Dowd Dragons, are down by 1 with 7 seconds left. He is on the court. He gets the ball in his hands. He puts it up at the buzzer. It goes through the hoop. They win by 1. Lou and his teammates are all like jumping up and down on the court. They're like screaming their heads off. And then comes the ref's whistle over the intercom. So the ref actually invalidates that final shot that Lou Ritchie made, because supposedly the Dragon center had his hand on the rim as that ball was falling through the hoop. So it was offensive goaltending. And then the Dragons end up losing by 1.
Come on, it's bunk, right? It's bunk, right?
Yeah, it's like it's crazy. So Lou actually has a DVD of that game in his office, and he let me borrow it. After he told me that story, he's like, "Gene, you go home and you watch this. You tell me if that kid's hand was on the rim." So I watched it.
Because that's healthy to watch that.
Yeah, but it just goes to show like what happens to you in high school. It can haunt. Like he was like in his 40s. You know what I mean?
For sure, of course.
Like these moments are like so, I don't know, like so much adrenaline is running through your body. Those are some of your most vivid memories.
When you consider, for anybody interested in sports, which I am not, like high school is probably their peak moment of sport of all that they're ever going to get to, right? They're never going to, they probably won't even play in college at all if they do, maybe, you know what I mean? So it's like high school.
That's right. Is
when you're
that
coming into your own as
yeah.
adults and everything else, it's
Yeah,
important.
everything's just heightened in general, but on the court especially, things are just like. But so that moment just haunted him. You know, he does go on to play in college. He plays for UCLA and then Clemson, and then he gets injured. Yeah, so all of this, all the things that you're showing on the pages, this is all real. This is actually how it happened. He put
This
it
is
on
the
at
moment,
Clemson.
folks.
That's the moment. That's the moment.
So let's talk moment to moment panel transitions to slow down
Yeah,
time.
very
Gene.
McCloudian. Yeah, I'm a huge
I
Scott
got to
McCloud
bring up.
fan.
I know that, Gene, because I was going to bring it up, but there are many cartoonists when I read them. I don't know why, maybe, but I look at this and I go, this guy read Understanding Comics and
Yeah.
probably Zot too, and
Zot too. All of Zot, every page.
and learned every lesson from Understanding Comics, absorbed them about breadth of subject matter, about panel transitions, about all of the little subtleties that McCloud spelled out. Like, I know, Gene, I know,
Yeah,
Gene,
yeah,
that you
yeah. That's
absorbed.
exactly right. That's exactly right. Yeah, McCloud. I mean, he got to my brain. I think I was in my late teens or early 20s. He got to my brain right at the right time.
Yes, yes.
All of that stuff just got infused inside of me. For
I
sure.
bought first printing Understanding Comics off the shelf. Okay. And
Yeah.
it blew my mind wide open.
Yeah. I remember reading about that in Comic Shop News. You know, they made the announcement for Understanding Comics in Comic Shop News.
Oh.
And they showed I still remember the graphic. It was the graphic of a clock unwinding like a tape measure,
Yeah.
and Scott McCloud walking and talking about how in comics space and time are the same thing. And I saw that, and I was like, I need to buy this book. So I don't know if I have a first printing, but it has the black cover. I think is Tundra. Was Tundra?
Is it Tundra? If it's Tundra, I believe that's the first.
That was the first printing. Yeah, I think that's what I have. I have Tundra.
Comic Shop News too. Oh, friend of the show and frequent panelist Cliff Biggers, by the way. Of
yeah, Cliff Biggers.
Great guy.
Yeah. So anyway, so back to Dragon Hoop. So he loses that game, right? And he comes back as a coach. As a coach, he leads 5 teams to the California State Championship, and Lou Ritchie loses all 5 times. So the reason why I wanted to follow him for the 2014-2015 season was because, according to him, that was the best team that the men's program at the school had put together in a generation. So it was his best shot at finally winning, and I wanted to follow him to see if he could do it.
Well, this is what I meant when I'm saying intergenerational saga, Gene. That is absolutely, Lou is the thread, right, that ties together all this school all the way right up to the present day. Yeah. So who's going to play Lou in the movie? Who's your pick?
I don't know, man. I don't know. Lou could even play Lou, dude. He's he's a really interesting dude.
No, it's Idris Elba.
Possibly.
For the Oscar. And then who do we get in there for you? We bring it. Who do we get for you? We get either Harold or Kumar. I forget which one.
It would be Harold. Although, you know, there's this guy who I grew up with who I actually thank in this book. He's actually, like, in the very first page of this book, there's a kid that kind of makes fun of me on the court. And that kid is his name is Brian Yang. So on the very, very first page, if you go all the way to the very front. Yeah, that kid right there in the Bulls in the second panel. So he's a real kid. His name is Brian Yang, and he is now an actor. So he was on Hawaii Five-0. You know that show, Hawaii Five-0?
Yeah, okay,
He was on Hawaii Five-0. He played one of the secondary characters named Charlie, but he's also like a movie producer and all this kind of stuff.
Dude, and he's a Yang.
Yeah. We're not related. It's just because ancient Yangs were really good at reproducing.
Whatever, Yang Gang, baby. Yang Gang.
That's right, Yang Gang. So it'd be awesome if he could be in that movie. Like, if it ever gets adapted, he would be my first choice.
Cool. Well, Idris Elba, that dude. Yeah. You got a winner on your hands, Gene. Yeah. But here's the thing. Here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. That movie will not be as good as this book. Because you do things in this book you can't do in a movie. Or I've never seen done in a movie. You do things in this book that you can only do in comics. And that's why I go, this guy is a cartoonist. He's not just like some fly by night dude who wants to write a book about whatever and decided graphic novels are hot. Like, you know what you're doing here, dude.
I love comics. I love comics. I got to be honest. Like 9 times out of 10, if I have a choice between reading a comic and watching a movie, I'll read a comic. Like a lot of times at night, my wife will be watching Netflix and I will be reading a comic. You know, so
that's an easy choice to make in my household too, man.
Yeah.
Because there's such great. You can go to the past. You can go to what came out today. Like, man, I still pick up comics on Wednesday, and I'm still frequently I find myself just in bliss of like reading that single comic book on afternoon. It's amazing.
Yeah. And I also think that there's like a intimacy in comics, or like you can, because you don't need as many people to make a comic as you do a movie. You know, there's not as many levels of approval, and especially in indie comics, you can just kind of do what you want. You know, so because of that, like you get stories that you're just not going to get in movies or television.
Well, not to mention, if you get into media theory and hot and cool media and whatever, and go back to, I know you've read your McLeod, so you know that the reader identification angle, and the simplicity of the drawing plays a role in that.
Yeah,
this is your style, I would say, but it is a style that is particularly suited to engendering reader identification.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely like I love that aspect of reading comics, right? To sort of read and to notice how you respond to just these visual cues that are on the page. That's one of the things I find. I mean, that's actually one of the reasons why I like Gurihiro so much. I think they're able to ride that balance so well. Like they can do superhero style action, but then they also, when they need to, they simplify their art enough to allow the reader to enter the page easily.
Yes. Well, Gene, okay, so besides the personal stuff, which I love, the team stuff that I love, you then do a whammy and teach me about the history of basketball, which I didn't know that I cared about or was interested in. But those were some of my favorite chapters in the book. I really love the Harlem Globetrotter stuff a lot.
Yeah, the Harlem Globetrotters, man. So originally, I was just reading basketball history to get to know the sport. Because honestly, when I started the sport, when I started this book, I barely knew anything about the sport. I knew nothing about basketball. And I just felt really like I was following Lou's team. I was traveling with them, trying to make sense of what I was seeing on the court, and not really getting any of it. So I started reading books about basketball history. And what I noticed was, first of all, like a lot of the stuff I just found really fascinating, because basketball history is not just basketball history, right? It's in a lot of ways it's a microcosm of American history, right?
Race relations in particular. Sports is so good at focusing that race relations into something that like more people can identify with and understand.
Yeah, that's right. And basketball in particular, early on, the communities that gravitated towards basketball were ones that couldn't afford a field, right? If you can't, if you're an immigrant community, or if you're like, you know, any other kind of community that's too poor to maintain a field of grass, basketball was their sport. So early on, it was like an outsider sport. You know, it was a way for outsiders in American culture to kind of find a place to belong. So all that, I just felt like, you know, I'd go to these games, I'd go to these high school games, and I'd look on the court, and in a lot of these games, there'd be kids of every ethnic background on that court playing side by side. And as a you know, an American in 2000, this was 2015, watching that, you just kind of take it for granted. But because I was reading these books, I was like, this took some work to get here, right? To have like kids of every different ethnic background just side by side on the court. This was not something that they took for granted at the beginning of the sport.
Yes, and just, I mean, the fact that sports is supposed to be such a level playing field in the sense that it should not matter what color, what anything you are. It's like your performance is literally all that matters in sports. And that's where people that were like looked down upon, who had bad expectations of them, could just say like, look, I can just prove you wrong.
Yeah.
And boy, did they ever, man. What was they originally saying? Like, oh, we just don't think African Americans are suited to basketball. They just don't
Yeah.
have the philosophy or whatever
Yeah.
nonsense they were trying to
Yeah.
spout.
Yeah, it was. I mean, that was kind of shocking to read too. That was in a Globetrotters book about how scientists in the early 1900s felt like African Americans could never be good athletes because they had small
Yeah.
lungs, and I mean, a lot of that is just like it's like poor nutrition from being poor. That's like early
You
on.
think?
And
Yeah.
they didn't think about that, and it's shocking how flexible American racism is, because when African Americans began to dominate at basketball, it was another way for them to be dehumanized, right? Like
Totally.
when they weren't in the league, the fact that they weren't in the league was a way of dehumanizing them. When they started dominating the league, that became a way to dehumanize them too. It's just so
Well,
flexible.
yes. Oh yeah, well, and then even you get into like, okay, Jimmy the Greek, right? He's like, and the black with their high thighs and their strong, like flipping it around as if like slavery is what made the black athlete what they were today. Like shockingly stupid.
Yeah, it really is. It's really like no matter how they present themselves on the court, no matter how a minority presents themselves on the court, like traditional old school American racism will find some way of interpreting that against the minority.
Yeah. But at the same time, how much progress has been made and how many people's eyes have been opened because of the doors that were smashed down in sports. And people just had to go, look, man, you're telling me that this guy who's the greatest baseball player we've ever seen in our life or whatever, you know what I mean? He's not good enough to play with these guys. It just didn't wash on an intellectual level at all for anybody.
Yeah, that's right. I just think
Zot
there you go. That's right.
You betray yourself, Gene.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I'm just saying. Like, I think you're right too. I think if you look at America, like the history of basketball in particular, it is also about American progress. It's everything. It's all of America, right? It's like like I said, the fact that we go to these games, we go to high school games, kids of every color on that court. They shake hands at the end, regardless of what team they're on. All of that is. Just if you look at it from the lens of like 1930s, 1940s, it's amazing.
Yes. And well, okay. So this book is an onion, dude, and we've only scratched a couple layers. Like there's more. We're going deeper because it's also about your family life, your career, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how in the middle of this thing, writing this, you started getting career opportunities where it's like, do I give up my safe gig with good benefits as a teacher to write comic books?
Yeah. So halfway through, that actually happened. Was halfway through that season, DC Comics called up my agent and offered me the chance to write Superman. So I was that was both an amazing opportunity and also one that was really scary to me.
Yeah. How do you overall do you feel like you left your mark on that character and that like you did what you wanted to do?
Well, so to be perfectly honest, I did 10 issues on the main Superman title, and it was pretty rough. I have to say, it was pretty rough. Like I'm not super happy with the way those issues turned out. I think there is a pace at which monthly comics come out that I had a hard time getting used to.
Yes.
And then it was also like a kind of a weird time in the history of the DC universe, I just remember this. I remember Rebirth happens and DC as a company felt completely different after Rebirth, even though the same people were in charge. It was just something about Rebirth just reset stuff in a way where, the books that I wrote after Rebirth, I feel pretty happy about. But before Rebirth, it was just everything about it was kind of rough, and I think it comes through in the pages. But I will say this, that one of the funnest things about working on those 10 issues was that I got to know this crew of writers. I got to know Greg Pak, who I adore now, and Pete Tomasi, Aaron Cruder. We kind of were like a team, and even though we were going through something really tumultuous, I felt like I learned a ton from those guys.
So another layer, we're not done. We're not to the heart of this onion, dude, because the heart of it, where it tipped over the edge to me, okay, was the abuse scandal stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
Your treatment of it, your struggling with how to depict it in the book. And that's part of the book, your struggle. And when you consciously say like, I'm just not going to talk about it, sort of, as a reader, we know you're going to talk about it. Like, we feel it, like the repetition of that when it keeps coming back. You see like, oh my gosh, it builds a dramatic tension that when we finally get to that part in the story, really helps it pay off. That
was the hardest part of the book. That was the piece of the book that kept me up at night, is that there's this really ugly episode in the history of that basketball program, right? And my first instinct was just to leave it out, but I felt like it was just not truthful to leave it out. I mean, the coach who's at the heart of that, his name is Coach Phelps. I ended up devoting an entire chapter to him, right? I thought through that. I spent so many nights thinking through how to depict that. I had long conversations with Lou about it as well, and all the way through, like even maybe a month before I turned the book in, I had a backup plan about how to pull him out and still have the book work. And I remember going to Lou's house and sitting down. And we just talked about it. We just talked about it for like an hour. And in the end, I decided, like, he encouraged me to just leave it in. So there are multiple things that we're trying to balance. I didn't want him to come across as innocent. I hope he doesn't come across as innocent at all. And we also,
I don't know. It's very he doesn't come across as guilty though to me either. It's pretty ambiguous.
Yeah.
And honestly,
I think that's how we feel about him is ambiguous. But I
lean on the side of, honestly, just from your story, that's all I've ever heard about it, and just what I heard, I lean towards believing him, to tell you the truth, because I didn't see any other incidents that were talked about or anything like that. I didn't see a pattern over years.
Yeah, there wasn't a pattern. I mean, at least I should say this. There was from what I could see, there was no evidence of a pattern. But I also, I don't know.
It's difficult.
I don't know how I feel about him. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about him. Yeah. But one of the possible consequences of the book was it was going to be renewed attention on this, right? So that was what we talked about. That was what Lou and I talked about and he was alive at the time. So we talked about, what is this gonna, like, will this turn his life upside down by me talking about it? And what will that look like for him? Because at the time he was like, he had Parkinson's. He was just not doing very well. But in the end, we just felt like it's part of the story. We have to talk about it, and we did.
That's the sad part of that. A guy with such a successful legacy, loved by so many. Like, I don't know. You could make a parallel to like a Jerry Sandusky or whatever, but they're so different. The situations are so different. There's so much cover up and history and everything. This is like one allegation. Not to discount that person's allegation. I'm sure it was. It's very hard to make that kind of judgment and ruin a guy's entire legacy.
Yeah, I mean, his legacy in a lot of ways was ruined already, right? It really was. Like when people thought about him within that community, they thought about the scandal.
Yeah.
So I think like what the part of the debate of whether or not to talk about it was, do we want to kick this up again for him, especially when he's old and not particularly healthy? But I don't know. It was just that was the hardest piece. That was definitely the hardest piece. But we just felt like in some ways, like if he was guilty, he would have deserved it getting kicked up again. But it was
Dude,
hard.
I thought you dealt with it tastefully in a way that respected both the victim and the potential that you are innocent until proven guilty, right? Like that is a thing that we
That
seem
is
to
the
have
thing.
forgotten in this society, right? That's real.
Yeah,
So,
that's a real thing.
like,
Yeah, yeah, and it's not like he didn't have consequence. I mean, I think that's one of the
oh,
tensions
dude,
for in
yes,
Lou's life, right? Like Lou, the reason I gave him a page with 9 panels to talk about his feelings with
yeah,
about his old coach, um, and the reason why I devoted that much time to it was because I felt like his feelings were so complex, you know, like right there. That's it. That's it. Those are the 9 panels. Like he's like Lou, like he loves this coach. He's told me over and over again, this coach was like my dad. He was like a second dad to me. And then he says this really
yeah.
intense
All right,
thing,
go
right?
ahead.
He says, you know, like him losing his job and his health and everything, maybe those were the consequences. And when he said that, I was like, how can you say, like, he had Parkinson's? He's basically saying maybe Parkinson's is the consequences of this man that I love as a dad. And I was like, I mean, that's why I give him 9 panels.
Well, he had his own resentments, though, and reasons to partially
Yeah.
resent the guy. There was some interesting ambiguity about his racial preferences and maybe in who he recommended to colleges and who he did not. That's what I found amazing is that Lou, despite the fact that this guy said, no, I will not recommend you to play college basketball, he's still coming back to support the guy. So that means something to me. I don't know what it means.
Yeah. No, I mean, like I said earlier, like I think you know, basketball is kind of like this microcosm of America, and I think that's true for Lou and the relationship with his coach. You know what I mean? Like I think he has like this love that is also
true.
Also like nuanced and they're like these broken pieces, right? And I feel like a lot of minorities, and maybe even especially African Americans, they love America. Like we as minorities, we love America, but there's also this ugliness to it, right? That you have to kind of work through. So I feel like Lou to his old coach there are parallels there, right?
Yeah, for sure, man. And this is why, okay. So I think I got all the layers of that onion, dude. But like, there's so many layers, and bringing in your own life and your relationship with these people, your relationship with your family and your career and everything else. This is why, I don't know if you've heard me say this before, but when I started thinking like, what do I compare this to? What is Dragon Hoops like? Because it's not just a bio comic. It's just not. It's not just an autobio comic. It's a little bit. It's much more. So the closest thing I could figure out that I think to compare it to. Wait a minute. Let me get dramatic. Is Mouse by Art Spiegelman. Like that is the kind of territory where I'm putting your book in. I'm not going to say it's better than, or maybe even as like it's as good as Mouse. Maybe, I don't know. That's subjective. Mouse is amazing. But so is your book, Gene. Like
that's crazy. Thank you. I don't know if I agree. I thank you. I mean, Mouse is Mouse
is amazing.
Yeah, Mouse is like if I have to give a book to somebody to be like, this is the pinnacle of what comics can be, Mouse would probably be it, right? Mouse is.
Well, I was gonna. Have you read this, Gene? Not to pivot totally away, but have you read this yet?
No. Is that his newest one?
Yes.
Oh, I gotta read that. That looks gorgeous.
Wait a minute, look at this.
Wow. Amazing. Yeah, the bookmaking is on all of his books, the bookmaking is always so amazing.
And he left Fantagraphics, and who's publishing this? Henry Holt and Company, Metropolitan.
Oh, okay.
Fancy New York publisher.
Yeah.
Speaking of Mouse, he did a long conversation with Art Spiegelman online that you can find on YouTube.
Okay.
Talking about this book that you might want. This was an amazing book. But what I'm saying, Gene, is these books came out this year. Okay. These books are in my list, are both nominees for my best original graphic novel of 2020. And I don't know which one's better yet. Gene?
Well, that I just being next to that book is an honor, is an amazing honor.
Not to mention, so what are you reading that you're loving, Gene? What did you read in 2020? That's a great book.
Yeah, I really liked Far Sector. I think that's an amazing
You're the
book.
second person to tell me that.
Yeah, you haven't read it yet? I haven't. I'm not completely caught up. I think I'm maybe only 6 or 7 issues in, but it's one of the best superhero comics out there right now. I mean, it's like, it's not just a superhero comic. It's like a sci-fi epic, you know. And,
is that Image?
No. It's Green Lantern. Far Sector is DC Comics, and it's this new Green Lantern.
Yes.
Yeah, it's great.
You're the second person to tell me that.
Yeah, you should check that out. I'm a big Mariko Tamaki fan, so she had the Laura Dean book. Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up with Me. I thought was a great book. And then Bitterroot. Have you been reading Bitterroot? Bitterroot's great as well.
No,
it's awesome. That's an Image book. Yeah, that's an Image book that you should check out.
You're scooping me. All right. How are you reading? I got to see if I can stump the Yang. How about Ginseng Roots? I bring it up a lot on the show.
Yeah, I got the first issue of that, and I know there's some controversy around it. So I mean, just like all the other stuff he does, he there's some stuff about how, like, there's some discussion about how he handles culture. But I think, like, just everything else Craig Thompson does, it's gorgeous. It's a gorgeous book, right? It's
Are you talking about like the Chinese culture?
Yeah. But I feel like as a Chinese American, I didn't find anything in that offensive. I think
yeah, me neither.
Yeah, and I think it's drawn from his actual life, right? I think it's drawn from his actual life, and because he worked on a ginseng farm when he was a kid.
Yes. Yeah. And a lot of it, I think, is also historical perspective of how, like, ginseng was marketed during history, because it's such an amazing book talking about the agricultural history of a product like ginseng, yet also his personal life.
Yeah,
that one, since there's no graphic novel, since he's serializing it, like, you're not competing with Craig, because he might have a lock on best original series for 2020 with that one.
Yeah, he's one of the best. I do think Craig Thompson's one of the best in our generation. For sure.
What do you think about his pivot away from graphic novels, conscious pivot away from graphic novels to serialized bi-monthly? He's like, I want the deadlines, I want the feedback, I want the letters pages, and I want all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think you got to figure out what works for you as a cartoonist, right? And it seems like that probably works for me. I get it too. Like, I think one of the things that I struggle with now that I've transitioned from being half teacher and half cartoonist to just full-time cartoonist is that I don't see anybody. You know what I mean? Like it's like cartooning can be a really lonely job, but and to put things out on a regular basis and get feedback, it could be just a way of interacting with the rest of the world, so you're not lost in your own little cartooning bubble.
All right, Gene, are you ready to talk to some people? We got some people with some comments and some questions.
Sure, man. Sure.
What are we going to do? We're going to hobnob with the hoi polloi right now. Hang on. Let me get all up in here. Whoa, back to the library. Okay. Let's see.
Magic.
We've had comments from the very beginning. Oh, let's start off with, regular watcher and a YouTuber in her own right, Nerdette's Newsstand. She's lapping me. She's got like 20,000 subs or something out there, and she watches the show a lot. Thanks for watching, Nerdette. Joe Cool says hi there.
Awesome. Hello to both of you.
Longtime watcher, Coffee Breath. This guy's been supporting me from the beginning, Gene, awesome. When I was doing nothing. And he's a longtime watcher. Same with Sequential Geek. Live long and prosper, my friend. Oh, here we go. Yay! Dragon Hoops, one of the comics of 2020, according to the Comics Beat. And everybody else, Gene, every best of list that I'm seeing out there, New York Times, whatever. If Dragon Hoops is not there, it's a conspicuous absence, in my opinion. It's
thanks. Thank you. The publisher and I have been thrilled with all of the support that we've gotten, for sure.
How's the sales?
I mean, I don't think I have actual numbers, but it seems like it's doing fine. Yeah, I think. I mean, we're in a pandemic, right? So I'm grateful to still be working. So it's
Well,
been good.
you're going to get the comic book news bump from this one, pal.
Awesome. Looking forward to it. Awesome.
Yeah, and Cough Breath said, yeah, according to a lot of people, like everybody's saying that Dragon Hoops is great. Anybody who's read it is like, wow. Anybody who hasn't, it's like, I don't know. You look at it. I love the textured.
Yeah,
cover.
that was Kirk Benshoff. He's the designer who came up with that cover. He did an amazing job. He did the inside thing too, the blue with the gold.
Beautiful as well.
Yeah, he did such a great job. I mean, I think
I don't like dust jackets. I don't like dust jackets, but this is well done.
Yeah. He's did a great job.
Pages. Oh, it's got that delicious new book smell. I love this book, dude. I'm going to give it to some coaches that I know. My brother-in-law, who's way into sports in every sport in every way. Like this hat really is for him. I think I'm going to pass this on to him because I think he'll really enjoy it. Nerdette says, "Hey, Gene, can't wait for Batman."
Oh, awesome! That's great. I'm super excited about Batman Superman. So I'm gonna become the regular series writer with issue number 16 with Ivan Reis. That's the thing I'm most excited about.
Oh, right? Dude.
Ivan Reis. It's gonna be amazing. I mean, I don't know if the art writing is gonna be amazing, but the art is gonna be amazing. Like I've already seen pieces of it, and he's like, he's really bringing his A game on this one, dude. I guess I've never seen him bring anything but his A game, but
he's the top of the game as far as mainstream superhero pencilers.
Yeah, like, he really is. He really is. And I think for DC especially, he's like his style is DC Comics. You know, when I close my eyes and I think about DC Comics, I see his style.
Exactly. It just feels right. It feels so effortless and right that it almost is invisible, which is the best kind. Like that's Gene Yang style storytelling.
He's so I'm super excited about working with him.
Okay. Sports build teamwork. And then people are entitled to be upset at any coworker that's not into sports. Teamwork.
It sounds like there's some maybe some history there.
I'm with you. SG. I don't know. I played badminton in high school. I was on the badminton team. And there was me and my pal. We were both like, I'm 6'2". He's 6'2". And literally every other person on the team was not just female, but like all Asian females and all like 5'1". We would they were so much better than us. It was embarrassing. I would get trounced on a daily basis.
Yeah. I used to live in college. I lived with these 6 other guys that were all huge sports nuts, and it was I could feel what that guy was talking about.
Dude, my whole life I've been surrounded. My store that I bought was Mike's Coliseum, and it was sports cards and comics, and I had to sort baseball cards for a living at 11 for $2 an hour in store credit, and I think it traumatized me. Back in like 87, Topps set was like 660 cards or whatever.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember baseball cards were big, right, when we were kids. Kids like nowadays they don't really do that anymore. Everything's virtual now.
That's awesome. Superman smashes the Klan. That's a vacuum that needs to be filled. Superheroes taking on real life villains. Superman hitting someone from the Sackler family. That would be dope.
Well, I do think, I mean, one of the things that I really like about that original radio show is it shows that these stories that, you know, some people look down upon because they're about guys in capes actually can have a real world effect, right? They make a difference in the real world.
I love Shadow Hero.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. So Shadow Hero is a graphic novel that I did with a friend of mine named Sunny Liu. It came out, I don't know, 6-7 years ago. But it's set in the 40s as well. It's sort of set in the golden age of superheroes. Okay.
Awesome. All right. Hey, Motion Actions Connects worked in sequential story as sports. Pow, nice.
Oh, awesome. I'm kind of shocked that there are not more sports comics in American comics. I think that's definitely a hole that can be filled. And it's a great way of bringing people into the medium as well. You know, there's so many sports fans in America. We really ought to have more sports comics.
Okay, here we got some specific questions from Sequential Geek about your style. Now here's nuts and bolts. So that's simple line work. I know it's not simple, it looks light. Without much background. Is that on purpose? Maximize output to keep the pace of your drawing faster and more output per page per week? Or done on purpose to keep it light on the lines to non-comic readers, make it more approachable to non-comic readers? Is that supposed to be more marketable then?
I mean, yeah.
I have my pick, but you tell me, Gene.
I mean, I do think that I draw the way I draw. Like, I'm not. I work with this other guy named Mike Holmes, who he's the artist of the Secret Coders series that we talked about earlier, and he is one of those chameleon artists who can take on any style that he wants. You know, he's phenomenal. But I don't feel like I'm like that. I can draw one way. It takes me forever to draw, and that's it. So a lot of it is efficiency, but at the same time, I do think that that McLeod theory that we talked about earlier about reader identification is totally true. You know, like I think if you keep your characters relatively simple, it is a way to invite, especially people who are like casual comic book readers. It's a way of inviting them into your story.
And storytelling wise, it really allows you to focus something on like a particular thing without background detail necessarily overwhelming you. When you need to make a focus on an action or an object or a thought or an emotion, you can do it.
Yeah, I try to when I write my comics, I try to make it so that every panel only has a single primary action and a single primary emotion. Like there are going to be other emotions in there, but there should be one main one that the reader is supposed to get.
Okay, Erwin Papa says, "Stop interrupting, please." Yeah, Gene, would you stop? Please stop. No,
I'll try.
I'm so sorry. Part of it is that I'm lagging. The audio lags, so it's a little hard sometimes.
I don't think I noticed, to be honest.
Okay.
I feel like we're just used to talking like this in Zoom, right? There's like a slight awkwardness to this kind of chat, and you just over the course of the pandemic, I just got used to it.
Thank you for covering for my subpar interviewer skills. The people knock me around about that all the time. Far Sector by M.K. Jemison?
Yeah, and Jamal Campbell, I think, is the name of the artist. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
It's amazing.
Peter Holt, longtime watcher, says, "Hey, Craig Thompson has leveled up. He's just getting better and better. Ginseng Roots." Yeah. I say it's his best work by a lot.
Yeah. Well, yeah. He is one of the best. He's one of the best working today.
I love the covers and the end papers and the pages, the backup strip by his brother, and just so many things. Just taking me to a place in comics that we're not at anymore, where people, no offense, Gene, but people park themselves in a room for 5 years and then produce this magnum opus. You pulled it off. You were lucky enough to pull out some genius out in that time. But man, how many people did it? How many people sat in a room for 5 years and wrote a graphic novel and then it went dud?
Well, Craig Thompson, I mean, I think one of the things that you get out of that book is that he isn't just doing the art and the story, right? He's also doing the bookmaking, you know, and that's like that is also something that we don't see a lot anymore.
That's Shiga style too.
That's Shiga style for sure. Yeah, that's Shiga style.
Okay. Did researching basketball ever make you want to try playing at any level?
No, dude. No. Not at all.
You seem like a tall guy, though. How tall are you?
Yeah, I'm tallish. I'm 6'1". I'm tallish. Yeah. So that made it even more painful when I did not have the coordination to play sports.
Oh, dude. Tell me about it, because I'm 6'2", almost 6'3", and I used to be really big fatso. Yeah. And so like every football coach is like, "What a shame. Why won't you be on my team and bash your head into things for me?"
Yeah, that was the worst. Like being in high school and like, you know, trying to play pickup and then getting picked earlier than I should have. You know, I should be picked last.
Yeah. Oh, dude, I've been there.
And it's feeling like like you're disappointing everybody.
They regret it instantly, and then the rest of the semester, like you're last pick.
That's right.
Okay, wait a minute. Controversial crowdfunder Randy Siplin says Dan just insinuated that Asians are bred to be better badminton players. I might have insinuated that. I might have. All I'm saying is they were good.
Yeah. Yeah, racket sports, man. Racket sports are big in Asia for sure.
Indoor too, air conditioned, indoor. It makes sense. I get it.
Yeah, yeah,
I went to
yeah,
Singapore once and they were really into archery there.
yeah. Archery too in Korea. Archery is kind of a national sport in Korea
Huh.
for sure.
All right, here we're going to wrap this up. We got a couple more comments. Peter Holt, longtime watcher. I'm irrationally resistant to sports stories, but now I'm very excited to read Dragon Hoops. It looks beautiful.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. there are some, like I said, I feel like sports stories are definitely underrepresented in American comics. I hope that changes. But like Gollum's Mighty Swing by James Sturm is one of the all-time great
There you
American
go. There you go.
Graphic novels, and it's a sports story.
Yeah. I was combing my mind, and I'm sorry to say the one that came to mind, you might not even know this one, but it's from our pal Dan Vado, who published a book by Chuck Austin back in the
Chuck Austin
called
I think
they did Hero Sandwich together, but he also called Hardball, which was like a pornographic baseball comic.
Yeah, that was his niche, right? That back in the day was like this soft, was this soft core kind of stuff? Wasn't that what he was known for?
It walked the edge. It walked the edge. It walked the edge for sure. Okay. And how 12-year-old Danny knew that and knew that there wasn't that's a story for a different
well, come on. It was the 80s. There was no internet. Like when you're,
Okay, here's the thing. And so in my store back then in the 80s, it was like anything that was not a Marvel DC comic meant for kids was in the adults only section. So like for me to read Peter Bag's Hate, it's right next to Cherry Pop-Tart and these other comics. But frankly, some of those pornographic comics were really good comics, very skilled cartooning.
I remember Chester Brown's Yummy Fur being like sectioned off with the adult comics, but that was an amazing book. I mean, Chester Brown is like, he's one of the best.
I got one for you. Did you ever read Ironwood by Bill Willingham?
I never did. But I know what you're talking about.
It's hardcore pornography. Was it good? But it's a great fantasy story as well. It's really, really high quality. It's an Elemental spin-off. Actually.
Well, yeah. I mean, I read almost all the Fables. That dude knows what he's doing.
Okay, we got one more here. Well, two more. Gene, great show, Gene and Dan. Thanks. Somebody's bored. They're gone. They checked out, I guess, already. But last one. Gene, can you let us know anything about the classroom projects initiatives you've worked on? How was that a success? How could it expand? No one wants to fund stuff like that.
Oh, so right now, I would say there is more interest than ever in bringing comic books into the classroom. Like I said, my publisher, First Second Books, they have a series called Makers Comics. They have another series called Science Comics, another series called History Comics. All of those are explicitly targeted at the classroom. And if you go to any like librarians convention or English teachers convention, comics are fairly well represented in those situations.
I'm not going to say fairly. That boat has sailed. We're in full on comics boom
time. Yeah.
Now.
Yeah. I mean, there are still a few like. I've never met a librarian actually that's been comics adverse, but there's still feel teachers and parents. But they're like, I mean, those ranks are dwindling. Like pretty much everyone is on board for comics at the very least in like a remedial reader setting. I think a lot of school communities, that's where they bring in comics first before they realize no, comics are actually for every kid in this school. Right?
What's great about them is they are great for remedial readers. But if you ask me, the smartest kids are the ones that love comics the most.
That's right. Yeah. But I would say this: like, if you are part of a community that is reluctant, like bringing them into a reluctant reader setting is a great way to introduce comics into.
Yeah. I'm going to say number one book for that. I always recommend. It's my number one go-to recommendation. Let me see if Gene agrees. Usagi Yojimbo.
Oh, Usagi Yojimbo is great. Yeah, that's definitely there. Yeah, I would say like Usagi Yojimbo, Bone, Smile, Amulet. Zeta the Space Girl. All those are.
I like all of those books, but Usagi has a special place in my heart for several reasons. One, the number of volumes available. If a kid likes it,
right.
they got a lot to go. They're going to read for years and still read the ongoing continuing series. Two, the history lessons. You can point to like real, researched history and mythology and everything else. And then the most important reason, Gene, is because you can hide, like teachers love it. Parents love it. Like it's highly recommended in libraries, but every single issue has a bunny rabbit stabbing someone to death.
yeah. In a historically accurate way, though, right?
In a
way that conforms to ancient samurai culture. That's right. Yeah.
And my pitch for it is that yes, and it's extremely violent. When the parents go, "Is it violent?" I go, "Extremely." There are murders in every single issue.
Pretty much every single issue. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Usagi Yojimbo. I mean, Stan Sakai is a legend. He's amazing.
Well, we're working on Stan.
Dude, get him.
We gotta beat on Stan. I had a friend pass away this year. A really good friend died, and he had ALS and he could not even talk. And he sent a message to me. I did not know this, but it was 1 week before he died. Okay. And he reached out to me to say, "Dan, my son is addicted to video games and I need your help. What can you recommend to me to get him? This kid loves the outdoors. He's an active kid, but he doesn't like superheroes." And I instantaneously said, Usagi. And I sent a little note to Stan, and they sent a whole care package to that guy's family.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Yeah.
And it made a real difference in that kid's life. His dad passed away like a week later.
Wow. Yeah, so, I mean, I've only gotten to meet Stan a couple times, but that story is very much in line with all of the stories about him.
That's Stan, dude. And those values are reflected in the storytelling and in the care, love, and everything else. So, man, I'm getting all teary-eyed, misty-eyed talking about Stan Sakai. Gene, thanks so much for coming in. I really appreciate your time. I know you're a busy guy. You can interview by the Library of Congress. You got New York Times breathing down your neck or whoever, dude. You didn't have to take the time to come here, but you did. I appreciate it.
This was a ton of fun. I mean, this is like we're comics people, right? This is our house. We're in our house.
Will you come back sometime and talk to me about whatever?
Yeah, of course. Thank you again, Dan. Thanks so much for inviting me.
Thank you, Gene. Okay, I got to play the credits and do the stuff. If you got time to stick around afterwards, please do. If you don't, I understand.
Okay, cool.
Thank you, Gene. Oh, man. Gene Yang. I'm Yang Gang for life, all right? I'm just going to say it right now because I don't know, man. There's a movement in graphic novels right now. Like, graphic novels are exploding. I got on somebody else's stream. I was commenting. There are a lot of idiots out there. I'm just going to say it, straight up dummies who say the comics industry is dying or contracting or something. Are you stupid? Like, do you not look around? Do you not even look at the sales numbers of comics? Or are you so hemmed into the idea that comics are all about what came out on Wednesday for Marvel and DC that you do not understand that the medium of comics is far bigger than that little universe? Marvel and DC could go out of business tomorrow. And the comics industry will continue to expand because the definition of the comics industry is, dude, it's the people that we have on this show, right? Mainstream people, indie people who transcend, people like Larry Gonick, dude, people like Keith Knight, people like Gene Yang. These are folks that grew up really loving and appreciating comics. They're not bandwagon hoppers, dude. They were leading that bandwagon. Like, they are the horses in the front. I don't know what the analogy is. All right. They've done that thing. And now they are poised to reap the benefits of wide stream commercial acceptance of comic books in North America. I'm just going to say that. Okay. If you want to produce comics, there's never been a time when you can produce comics by yourself 100% and get them out to an audience. You can crowdfund it. you can find a publisher, because every publisher is scrambling for cartoonists now. Okay, if you could put pen to paper, if you have drawn some comics, you could probably get a YA gig at some publisher drawing something. I'm just going to say it, if you have decent comic chops. Those things will come and go. Superstars will rise from that. But Gene Yang, we've got one in the making. We got a guy who is firmly, he's in the industry. He's a professional cartoonist now and forever. That must feel good. You don't have to go into your computer science class. I'm sure he still likes code once in a while, but I doubt he's scrounging for extra time to write code taking away from his family like he did for comics. I just have a feeling. So this guy, he's done it. He's in the nomination for Best Original Graphic Novel of the Year here on Comic Book News, the Comic Book News Awards for Excellence in Sequential Literature, also known as the Dannies. We'll be handing those out pretty soon. Next week, I've got a fantastic guest. Okay? He was supposed to be here 3 weeks ago. I got sick as a dog, like could not get out of bed that day. And it felt so bad because we're bringing back in the great Elliot R. Brown. If you've read the Handbook to the Marvel Universe and ever geeked out on one of those diagrams of Captain America's shield or Ant-Man's helmet with full schematics, or you read the Iron Manual, or you read the Punisher Armory, this is Elliot's magnum opus. This is his work that really he did everything on, wrote, drew, produced. I think it's one of the best takes on the character of Frank Castle, the Punisher, ever published. It's never been reprinted. It's not collected. You got to find the issues. Some of them are very hard to find. We're going to focus on that, but how could we not talk about everything else the guy's done? He's the official cartographer of Gotham City, for heaven's sake. He designed the Baxter Building, like the canonical Baxter Building blueprints that we see in the Handbook of the Marvel Universe. Almost killed himself doing it. We'll talk maybe a little bit about that story too. Thank you for watching this long. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for hitting like, commenting, all that stuff. And hey, maybe consider, there's another button down there that says join. Join. You hit that button, what happens? Ooh, I don't know that I can even talk about it. It's strictly on a need to know basis. So you better just click that thing yourself and see all the amazing levels of benefits that you get from membership of Comic Book News. Next time, we're going to be back with Elliot. My graphics still up. We're going to be back with Elliot next week. We're going to talk about all things techie and geeky and comics, of course, because that's what we do. And we're going to see you. But when are we going to see you? What time will it be? What designation of temporal proximity are we expressing? We're talking about next time.
At a 1 and a 2 and a pair of 3s, the votes are all in. Will the real Jack Mercer please stand up? Hey, wow. It's so funny. It's so funny, yeah. Good job, gentlemen. We were worried as to whether or not something of the voice would creep through there, and it worked out beautifully. Number 1, Mr. Goldwater. Will you tell us what your real name is and what you do?
Use your real voice.
My name is Daniel Higgins.
That is his real voice.
What do you do, Mr. Higgins?
I'm a retired U.S. Army major, and at the present time I'm plant manager of the South Amboy, New Jersey plant of Positive Chemicals Incorporated.
Now, hear this.
Number 3 would like to know about you.
Well, my name is John Black.
Yes? I have been in the travel business, agency business since 1945. Expect to, and hopefully open my own business in the Exxon business building very shortly. Hey, good luck to you. Well, Jack, the audience would kill me if I let you get away without giving us some small demonstration of Popeye. Just anything that you'd care to do.
I'd be glad to. Oh, I'm Popeye the Sailor Man. I'm Popeye the Sailor Man. Skippity-dee-day-do. I'm strong to the finish, 'cause I eat me spinach. I'm Popeye the Sailor Man. Whoa, whoa.
Thank you, gentlemen, for being with us on To Tell the Truth.